A fisherman down in Louisiana last summer. 23 bass in a single afternoon. His buddy? Same lake, same water, same weather, same hours. 4, not 14. 4. Same rod, same technique, same lures from the same tackle shop. The only difference was something in a small glass jar that no store in America will ever put on their shelves. If that sounds like something worth knowing, stay right here and drop a comment telling me what state you're watching from. I read every single one. This works in freshwater, in saltwater, rivers, lakes, coastal flats, bayous. And the reason it works has everything to do with something happening inside the fish that most fishermen walking into Bass Pro right now have no idea even exists. But before the science, you need to hear where this comes from. Because this didn't start in a lab. It started on a riverbank, and it's been buried ever since. The Cherokee and Choctaw tribes fished the rivers of the Southeast for generations. The Tennessee, the Tombigbee, the Alabama, and they didn't leave empty-handed. Not because they got lucky. Because they knew something the tackle industry has spent decades making sure you forget. Tribal elders carried small pouches with plant-based preparations that went on the bait before every single cast. That knowledge moved from father to son, grandfather to grandson, standing on the bank together before the lines went in. No book, no brand, just results, passed down the way real things get passed down. A fur trader writing in the early 1800s described watching a Choctaw fisherman on the Tombigbee River pull fish after fish, while everyone around him came up empty. Before his first cast, the man reached into a worn leather pouch, rubbed something dark and oily across the bait, quick, almost casual, like a man checking his watch, dropped the line. Fish within minutes. He did it again. Fish again. The trader wrote that it looked almost unfair. Coastal communities had their own version. From the Outer Banks in North Carolina straight down through the Louisiana bayous and into the Texas Gulf, old-timers prepared their bait with fermented fish pastes, specific plant oils, and compounds that today we'd recognize as being loaded with free amino acids. They didn't call it science. They called it fishing. And here's the part that should make you angry. Because this same knowledge sat on riverbanks and in family memories for generations, while tackle stores across America filled their shelves with synthetic attractants at $12, $18, $25 a bottle. That knowledge doesn't need to cost you anything close to that. The link in the first pinned comment below has the complete guide so you can use what the old-timers actually knew, and stop paying for the substitute. One click, that's it. Now let me show you what's actually happening inside the fish when they respond to this. Because once you understand the mechanism, you'll never think about bait the same way again. Fish are not just smelling the water. They're reading it. A largemouth bass has olfactory receptors sensitive enough to detect a single amino acid molecule dissolved in 10 billion parts of water. That is not a figure of speech. That's a documented, measured biological fact. For comparison, a bloodhound tracking a scent trail across open ground can't come within 10 miles of what a fish does from 50 yards away through moving water. The specific compounds that trigger the hardest feeding response are free amino acids, particularly glycine, alanine, and betaine. These are the building blocks of protein. When they dissolve into water, fish don't just notice them. They lock in and pursue. The lateral line, which detects pressure changes and low-frequency vibrations along the fish's body, picks up movement. But the olfactory system is what drags the fish to the source. Here's what makes this different from everything else. The same compounds that trigger largemouth bass, crappie, and catfish in the Mississippi watershed trigger redfish, flounder, and striped bass in saltwater environments too. The biological mechanism is identical. The fish's chemical sensory system does not care whether it's fresh or salt water. It responds to the signal. Researchers at Auburn University documented this in controlled trials with channel catfish. Bait treated with amino acid compounds triggered 3 to 4 times more strike responses than untreated bait in the same conditions. Anglers fishing the flats off the Florida Keys have reported the same pattern with snook and tarpon working tidal channels. Same mechanism. Completely different species. Completely different water. Same result. And none of this requires a lab, expensive gear, or a fishing sponsorship to access. These compounds occur naturally in fermented fish, crushed shellfish, and specific plant materials that people in rural Mississippi and coastal Louisiana have been mixing together on folding tables for over 100 years. They just didn't have the scientific name for what they were doing. But you've never seen this at Bass Pro. You've never seen a YouTuber with a brand deal push this. And that is not an accident. The fishing industry in America runs in the billions. The top synthetic attractant brands alone pull in hundreds of millions of dollars every year. And the one thing every single one of those companies depends on is you not knowing that a handful of natural ingredients, things you can grab at any Asian grocery store or order online for a few dollars, can outperform their $20 bottles. Here's the core issue. You cannot patent glycine. You cannot trademark betaine. These are naturally occurring compounds. No company can own them, which means no company has an incentive to market them. There is no margin in telling you to go to H-Mart and spend $3 on dried shrimp paste when they can sell you a plastic bottle with a cartoon fish on the label for $18. And it works both ways. When a fishing influencer promotes a product, there's a deal behind it. When your grandfather told you what the old-timers rubbed on the bait, that was just knowledge. No money changed hands, no brand got exposure. One of those things built a multi-billion-dollar industry. The other one is fading out with the generation that still remembered it. The companies didn't have to hide this. They just had to be louder. Now you know why it disappeared. Here's how to bring it back. This is a basic amino acid bait enhancer that works on both fresh and saltwater species. You need 2 tablespoons of fermented shrimp paste, available at most Asian grocery stores, also on Amazon. Look for small glass jars. 1 tablespoon of fish sauce. Red Boat is ideal, but any brand works. 1 teaspoon of garlic powder and half a teaspoon of sea salt. Total cost, under $4. This batch treats bait for multiple trips. Mix everything together until you get a thick, dark paste. The smell is intense. Do this outside. That smell is the amino acid release happening. That's exactly what you want. Step 1. Mix everything and let it sit for 24 hours before your first use. That short fermentation period increases the free amino acid concentration. Do not skip this. The difference is measurable. Step 2. Before every cast, coat your bait, worm, cut bait, or soft plastic, with a thin layer of this paste, not a thick soak. A thin coat that dissolves slowly into the current creates a scent trail. A thick coating creates a surface slick that spooks fish in clear water. Step 3. Cast upstream or into tidal current. Let the water carry the scent ahead of your presentation. You want fish following the trail into the hook, not smelling the bait after they've already passed it. Step 4. Reapply every 20 minutes or immediately after a strike. The compounds dissolve. Fresh application keeps the signal strong. This proportioning here is one of the core recipes in the complete guide. The guide breaks down additional formulations tuned specifically for catfish, bass, and Gulf Coast bottom feeders. If you want to push it further, add half a teaspoon of anise extract. Anise contains anethol, which triggers a secondary olfactory response in most North American freshwater species. For catfish specifically, a few drops of pure vanilla extract works along the same pathway. Works best at dawn and dusk during active feeding windows. In rivers, target current seams, where fast water meets slow water. That's where the scent trail concentrates and fish hold. In saltwater, fish the incoming tide pushing up channels. One more thing to avoid. More is not better. Thin, consistent, reapplied. Picture your next trip. The guy in the next boat is shaking an $18 bottle with a fish logo on it. You've got a small jar that cost less than a fast food lunch. 20 minutes in, the fish are coming your way, and he's checking his phone. Your buddies start asking questions. You decide what you tell them. Click now, secure your access to the complete guide, and let these strategies start transforming your next trips on the water. The link is in the first pinned comment. When you get back from the water applying what you learned, come back here and comment, "Caught more." That's your commitment to your own growth as a fisherman. And it might be exactly the step that separates the stories you've been hearing from the stories you're going to start telling. There's a certain kind of fisherman who doesn't chase every trend that drops on YouTube, doesn't buy every new lure the algorithm pushes at him, doesn't need to. He knows the water. He knows what fish actually respond to at the biological level. He learned from people who had no choice but to be effective. No synthetic gear, no sponsored content, just generations of hard-won knowledge tested on real water. That fisherman catches more than almost anyone he goes out with. Not because he got lucky, because he knows something. That's exactly who this channel is for. Hit subscribe and turn on the bell. Because the next video goes even deeper into what the industry doesn't want you putting together.